So Elsa, wasn't that magic trick amazing?
I kind of doubt it because you and Joe are talking to first class.
We were syncing our mental waves. Those of you who didn't know, in my IBD 630 class, a lot of you know Isha. There's such a thing known as mental Wi-Fi, where you can actually sync your brain waves. But I invented some technology helmets to actually encourage that. And basically we did the trick in front of class. The thing is, I would have done it earlier for the class, but there were problems with it that I had to fix. The magic was under spell check. As you can see, the sense of humor is not improved over time. Okay, well, thank you for all coming. There have been like 3 dream people I have hoped to get as a guest speaker for my class. And now I've got one. Now I got to figure out how to get the other 2. One is an astronaut and one works at the UN. So that's what high regard I have for Jessica. And mostly because she was you. She started out as a TEM student. And we didn't really help her. She just did it all on her own. She was just very pragmatic, understood what she needed to do. And she was driven to become a product manager. And now she's a product manager in arguably the most exciting space on the planet right now, which is AI. And of course, when you get to know students for a long time, you have your own inside jokes and things like that. There was a gal I knew named Jennifer Dryden when we were taking nonlinear modeling. We had a teacher who was very flamboyant. So every time Jennifer welcomed to the room, he would go, "Jennifer." And I had such a high regard for Jessica. I didn't think it was enough for Jessica just to come into the room. So when she would come through, I would go, "Jessica." So everyone, here's Jessica.
Hi, everybody. Wow, everyone's very quiet. So, yeah, well, I'm Jess, so really excited today. I mean, I want this to be as collaborative as possible. So, kind of the agenda for today, I want to talk a little bit about product, going to go into as well as some differences in AI, open source tools, closed source, as well as in-house LLMs. And then also too, so a lot of my experience has been in building AI HR tech products. Kind of from 0 to 1. So want to also give some tips and insights as to how large tech companies are interviewing, how they're looking for new talent, and how they're leveraging AI in that space as well.
I apologize. I made a mistake.
And then hopefully towards the end, I'll keep some time so we can, let me go into full screen. It's just a, one moment, guys. Let's see if I can get full screen here. There we go. Cool. All right. Yeah, little overview. I'm Jess. So yeah, so I have been in the B2B SaaS space since about 2016, 2015. And so I graduated from TEM back in 2017. But yeah, my career kind of started off working for startups. Over the past time, I was on the founding team at Paradox AI, where we were recently valued at $1.5 billion. So by the time that I really started out there, we were very small, very lean. I was the first AI product manager, had no idea what AI was, honestly. It was very new to the world in the space. But yeah, so ended up kind of scaling that team, was one of the first 30 employees. We ended up scaling it to about 800 plus. Where I was able to grow the product team from some of our first interns up to about 100 product managers. So definitely a big scale kind of organization there. Helped scale the company too from $0 million in annual recurring revenue up to 50 million. So once again, really seeing that high growth from a revenue perspective, specifically in B2B SaaS. Also won recently a product manager award for an industry award that they had in HR tech, which was really exciting, but also just where my love is for product. I like building cool things. And most importantly, I want to see more people get into this industry. I honestly think TEM is the perfect major to get into this. And started like a little Jessie the Techie side hustle where I help female businesses with building their online presence and consulting them with building their digital businesses. Okay, so yeah, so a little bit about the professional journey. Everyone's professional journey in product management could look wildly different. I was just talking to somebody today who got their MBA, they came from investment banking, and then now they want to go into product management. I got very lucky that when I had started out interning here at ASU, in one of our TEM board meetings, I actually met the founder of eVisit, which was a telemedicine software company based out of here in Mesa. Once again, very, very lean team, wasn't a ton of people. I think I was one of the first product people, but they hired me as a general intern to kind of do anything that they needed. And then that eventually kind of transitioned into product design. Back then we were designing in Photoshop, and now we're all aware of Figma and better tools to design. But back then we were, creating Photoshop designs for our mobile app. And it was really creating telemedicine so patients and physicians can connect with each other virtually. So it was really kind of new to its space. This was before COVID, so not a lot of people were introduced to telemedicine. It was a really big emerging space when I first started out there, and that's really where my career kind of kicked off. From there, I became a full-time PM, and then eventually transitioned over to Paradox AI. I know now they've become a lot of a bigger tech company here in Arizona. I now live in Los Angeles, but it's cool to see the Paradox signs everywhere when I drive by. But yeah, so in 2018, I was over there as the first AI product manager. Very exciting. Once again, the CEO kind of directly hired me, so I had no idea what AI was, kind of had to start from the ground up, how to do a ton of research, understand what NLP was, and essentially go out and build their flagship product, which today is Olivia. And so that's kind of where my career in AI started kicking off. Then over time, started to become more of a director. So got to grow a team, mentor internships, come to ASU, bring in people that are interested in product careers, and then really helped kind of eventually scale out that team to where they are today. And I'm sure they're still hiring around here too. So if anyone also needs any connections, let me know. And then now I work for an AI company based out of Silicon Valley called Sense. I work remote today, but I do spend a lot of time going back and forth from the Valley. The reason being too is I really wanted to learn about different technologies from seeing a company go from 0 to 1 billion here in Phoenix, which was a huge deal. That wasn't really anything that we had heard of back in the tech community within Arizona. So really got to learn and operate and understand how, the Arizona ecosystem functioned, how you can hire great talent from around some of our universities here. And then really wanted to expand now into Silicon Valley, where a lot of the founders that ended up hiring me here also had experience in exiting like bigger tech companies or gaming companies. So really was able to now kind of take all of that background to see how a Silicon Valley company operates versus an Arizona company. And now I lead their corporate enterprise team. And so I'm going to market with a brand new product. It's also in the HR tech space. So I'm really focused with working with large Fortune 500 companies and building AI systems for them to help efficient hiring. Okay, enough about me. All right, so what is a product manager? How many people in this room have heard of product or know of a product manager? Be shy. Yeah, okay. Hopefully that's why we're all here. Great. Okay, so the reason why I think TEM is such a great mix for this profession is because you think about business, engineering, and design, right? So from my background, I kind of came in from more of like a design thinking space, starting with product design, then got a little bit more of the business side when I started into startups. and then found this love for coding. And so then got to get more into the engineering side. I was like, you know what? How do I put all these three together and actually, you know, become a champion for how all three of these areas of the business can communicate with each other? So from a business standpoint, you know, creating business cases, opportunity analysis, creating go-to-market strategies, understanding market trends. So when you go into a new industry or when you're building a new product, why are you building it? Who are you building it for? And what's the impact? Engineering. So I've heard that we have a lot of people that have come in from CS or have come in from CS majors or CS background. I think it's very exciting. Actually, one of my product manager interns over at Paradox came from a CS degree, and I was able to shape him more into this product manager career, made an amazing product manager. And so this really here is to, you know, be the communication layer, understanding what's feasible. I know engineers don't just want to receive a list of requirements that is kind of us in dream space, but at the same time, we gotta, you know, be pushing the market forward. We have to be thinking innovatively. You have to really be thinking about how to make a product a magical experience while also understanding the feasibility so you can communicate with your devs. Design. I think a lot of people either fall into one of these buckets. I know back in TEM, there's like a human computer interaction class. Not sure if we still have that, but it was honestly one of the most fascinating classes because it taught you about design thinking. It taught you about user empathy, human computer interaction, prototyping, wireframing. You don't need to be the best designer. You don't need to be the best coder. You don't need to be, you know, the top graduate of your business school. But if you can truly bring all these components together, you'll be a very successful product manager. And I always joke with people that I feel like I'm like the therapist across all of these departments because I'm really just getting people to talk. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, it's really exciting. I think a lot of people can fit into one of these buckets and then eventually kind of expand. And I'll show you some resources too, that if you want to be more of a technical PM, how you can go that route, how you want to be more of a design-driven PM, or even more on like the strategy ops side. Okay, so how to land a job in product. One, I always say low egos. You always have to be open to learning. Honestly, I think I learned a brand new concept today about AI that I never knew about just by having a conversation with my developers. Always kind of learn from new resources. I know like there's so many great like free courses on top of the courses you can take here, but like Google Garage has some great around like Figma basics, AI, LLM basics, you know, really getting into some of the foundations of how to become a product manager. There's also some great PM blogs, and I'll share this too with Dr. Cho of trying to create a notion right now of some assets that you guys can take a look at it if it's of interest to you. But honestly, Reddit, I love Reddit. And so sometimes too, I even look through there to see different career paths or different things that people are seeing or learning in product management. Networking is huge. Every single job that I've gotten in product has been from networking with the founder or networking with the co-founder or, you know, meeting somebody in the classroom that was able to put in a good word. So building your network's huge. You don't need to be the most outgoing person in the world, honestly, but just being really humble, putting yourself out there. And, you know, I think a huge piece here is that when you reach out to somebody for an introduction, like make it really personalized, you know, like what's something that maybe you have in common versus asking somebody for something. Like find something in common, build that relationship. And I promise you, it'll take you so much further in your networking. Build. So this is the most important, I think, in TEM too. I don't know if Dr. Cho remembers, but we built the My Digital Backpack here, which was a fun kind of software project. I worked with some colleagues, but build a portfolio of ideas, create a landing page, one of my interns created a chatbot so that her friends and family could chat with it on Facebook to learn about, you know, a little bit about her background, to ask when her birthday was, to ask what her favorite color was. And that was a way that she could actually show a project, show a chatbot that she built and bring that into interviews. And so you really want to stand out there. So from this build perspective, learn different PM foundations. Once again, too, like your product's never going to be perfect. I think I tell this to everyone, like I've never fallen in love with a product. I could see, you know, the flaws in it all the time, but kind of treat that the way too with how you treat your career. It's never going to be perfect. There's always so much more to learn, but keeping that low ego and being able to, really consume that knowledge will take you so much further. Okay. So this is a podcast that really changed my mindset. This actually, one of the founders over at Paradox sent me this when I was going to one of my first like big on-sites. And so this podcast here, it's Masters of Scale. You can find this on Amazon. You can find this on Spotify. I just encourage everyone, I listen to this like once a year, but it's called Do Things That Don't Scale. Brian Chesky was or is the CEO of Airbnb. He has a really, really brilliant way of how he tackles business problems as well as product. And this whole concept of do things that do not scale is so fascinating because he comes up with this concept of building a product to an 11-star experience. So when you listen to the podcast, he'll tell you all about like what this 11-star experience is, but it really helps you when you're thinking about product, or the next time you go into a Target and you see a water bottle and want to think about, what's a 10-star experience of a water bottle, and really thinking about digital or physical products in a way that pushes your mind forward and really thinks through innovative problems. And then you scale that back to understand what's feasible. So would love if anyone wants to, listen to this. I, listen to it about once a year. I recommend it to like any of the PMs that I usually hire in on my teams. And it really gets us to take a few steps back and remind ourselves of like what excites you to build cool things when you were younger. Like, what did you just dream of that was so out there? And then how can you take that into product and scale it back and then understand feasible reasons of this is why I came up with that idea and this is why it's going to make such a big impact. So this is also like a little phrase, I guess. Iterate quickly, fail often. Product managers, you gotta live by this. Even if you're a developer, even if you're a designer. This is something that I wish I would have learned or at least understood more early on in my career. It's like your users are your best influence. Put something in front of users, whether it's a physical prototype, a digital prototype, your users will build your roadmap. I know sometimes we like to think, oh no, like I've done all the research, I've done all the testing, I've learned the whole space, like I know what my users want. No, until you put something in front of users, you'll see how they use it and it can be wildly different than whatever you designed or what you built for. And that's okay. Like that's actually the beauty of product. It's like, keep iterating, you're gonna fail, learn from your users, put prototypes in front of people. I think a lot of times, especially too in an academic perspective, we always feel like we need to perfect. But if you feel that way with product, like you're never gonna get a product to market. And so you really want to, have this concept of my product's never perfect because somebody can use it in a totally different way. And how can I learn from them? Because, if one person uses it that way, that probably means another 10% of my users might be using it the incorrect way, or maybe they find a hack. I think it's interesting too of, this client facing product manager. I know it sounds kind of scary because honestly, there are times where a client was yelling at me to build stuff for them. And I was just like driving my car and I'm like, you guys are a major company. Like I'm just over here, like trying to get stuff done. I don't really know what to do. But the great thing with like talking to your clients, talking to your users, like it helps you build empathy with them. At times it's, difficult. We want to be, a little bit more ahead and be like, oh no, we know exactly how they're going to use this. Once again, like people will use products in totally different ways than what you thought you designed it for. There might be a beauty in that too. Maybe there's a new use case for you to explore. But these are just some of like the top examples of why you should iterate quickly and fail often. I need to take a step on my Stanley. Let's see. I know you're all probably reading quite a few books too in classes, so I don't want to add more homework than what you already have, but if you get the free time or even like an audiobook, whatever's best for you, these are 4 books that I like very highly recommend. A lot of people that started out their careers in product from like internship, APM, PM, I kind of directed them in this direction. The swipe to unlock is written by an ex-Amazon PM, Facebook or Meta PM, as well as Google. And so they really kind of break down different areas of technology. Like there's this really interesting thing with Nordstrom. So in Nordstrom, if you walk into the store, they force you to connect to their Wi-Fi. And so it kind of breaks down that in this book of the reason why they're doing that is because you can actually start targeting and seeing where people physically are spending more time in your store. So they're using it from like a buyer's perspective of let's leverage technology and actually see how, we can create a better purchasing experience. Creative Confidence, another great book as well. I was always somebody that was like very, very technical. And so the whole concept of creativity just scared me. I couldn't draw. I can't even draw a stick figure. Just not a creative person. I think so at all. But this totally changed that perspective of what creativity means, and how you can really leverage this in your career, even whether it's product or anything else. Inspired, and then the Creative Acts for Curious People, also kind of go down the path of how to create products that people love, and then also how to unlock and unleash that creativity that really is in each one of us. I mean, even now, like the Stanley Cup, I'm sure we've all heard about, how far Stanley Cup has come just by listening to females asking for more colors, wanting, something that appeals to the female buyer, and then look at how much now that their overall value has skyrocketed over the last year, just listening to their consumers and listening to Gen Z. That's just a good example of, your users will tell you what they want, it'll influence it, and then hopefully create a better business. Okay. I'm gonna go into AI. And if I'm talking too quick, am I talking quickly or am I okay? Okay, we're good. Okay. Tend to talk really quick. But I'm going to go into a little bit of AI, and then we'll touch foundations here, and then I'll kind of open up the floor as well. So if you have any, questions from the previous talk around product, just feel free to jot that down. Don't lose it. But yeah, just wanted to open this up to the class today. I know AI wasn't really a huge thing back when I was in college, but I'm just curious, like, how are you using AI today? How do you think it changes or impacts your life? And like, what are your overall, like, what's your sentiment from like a student perspective? Someone's got to have a thought on AI. Yeah. Yeah. What tools do you use?
I use there's a couple of resources that listed, right, one that does like and stuff, and then it's a way to find ideas.
Oh, cool.
Like that's just the way to get source broad knowledge. So
Cool.
I think that's
Nice.
future AI is daunting. It's a little bit scary, but
Yeah. Totally. Awesome. Anyone else? Yeah.
I would say I could kind of just say it in two ways. So one is like what you said, like get ideas to expand to think outside of the boxes to compare to like to get out of the framework that we were given. So
Yeah.
I feel like AI, like ChatGPT, actually provides a lot of possibility when it comes to my brainstorming, my thinking. And the other way I would put it is to concise the information that we have. Like for example, there are a lot of AI tools from like Notion or like in Bitmod. There are a lot of AI tools that can help to summarize ideas. But sometimes that we're not aware of the dots that we might have an idea, but I feel like AI would probably give us an elaboration of how we can connect the dots together, and also like to make our idea more concise in a way like to help other people understand what we're thinking.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, it's a great. Yeah.
I use AI for journaling.
Oh.
So I built an app where I put in my thoughts and it gives me concise idea of how fast speed is being how I've done in the past week, past month, and what I need to do to get better the next few
Awesome.
months.
Yeah.
So I love the AI with that.
Amazing. Nice. Yeah.
I think it's an awesome research tool. Kind of piggybacking off what you were saying earlier, but just like whenever you're looking for whatever specific little data points,
Mhm.
it does such a better job to have it kind of skim the known information and look for actual phrases that are relevant
Yeah.
than like a keyword search.
Totally.
It just makes it a million times faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think those are all really great points of, you can leverage it in your everyday life, whether that's through journaling, whether that's through job search, whether that's through, trying to create a better design. I know Photoshop just came out with another AI tool where it's like, I just saw an ad on this, where it's like, show a colorful unicorn or something like that. And it was able to pre-populate that through images. So, AI is really exciting, but also too, there's some areas of it that are constantly changing year over year, day over day. We're seeing too, so chatbots nowadays are just becoming so accessible. As I mentioned too, like some of the people I've mentored have created their own personal chatbots just to get their foot in the door, just to understand some of the basics, whether it's building it from Python or from an open source tool. I'll go into some of those details as well. But chatbots, we're seeing them everywhere. I went to go look up insurance and there you go, I see a chatbot. So if you want to go talk to American Airlines, there's probably a chatbot. And so we're seeing more and more of chatbots. We're seeing too, open APIs are becoming more and more available. The beauty with an API, and I'm sure a lot of people here are very technical, so if I'm repeating things, just let that go over the head, but open APIs are a really, really fascinating way for you to adopt technology that people have already built. So like OpenAI, they've already built these LLMs, they've already built this technology, or they have communities to really help and keep progressing their LLMs or their AI models. And so this can really help you start with what I was saying around prototyping. You can use open APIs to prototype. You can use it to put a quick concept in front of a user, to get their feedback, to see how people interact with it, and to really test and Q&A an idea. Consumers and buyers are either very excited for AI or they're very nervous. From like the B2B SaaS perspective, I feel like a prospect or a client hops on a call and they're like, we want AI, go build it. It's like, okay, well, that's there's a lot that can go into that, but we're seeing a lot of big companies really want to adapt this concept of AI, but they have no idea where to start. And their consumers are really, really concerned. Because from a consumer standpoint, like, yes, we're all studying technology here. We're all, in this newer, I mean, you're all in a newer generation, but in this newer generation where technology, AI, all of this just, it feels like to us a pretty normal tool that we're getting used to. Whereas you can have, consumers that are from a different age that AI or chatbots might be extremely terrifying for them, or they have no idea how to operate it. Or they have no idea how to, use their mobile device to go through a conversation. And so we're seeing that from like a consumer and a buyer perspective. We're also seeing like data and legal concerns. So the EU and Europe has always been just very, very ahead of us from more of like a legal standpoint, specifically around technology, cookies, data privacy, as well as artificial intelligence. So if you're building new technology, it's a really great place to start looking at some of the EU laws, because more than, majority of the time, you're going to have, somebody, a client, a user, asking you, how are you compliant? What do you do with my data? What, how is this data protected? Where is it being stored? And so you always want to kind of keep in the loop on what's happening in the world of AI. And now the US is actually starting to, take on more of these legislations, and it's all good for us to know. There's this over at Amazon, this was a while back, but it was kind of a good example of like how a bunch of engineers got into a room, thought they could build this really, really cool AI that can go ahead and find talent for them and like, automatically screen, interview, and hire people immediately. It was all built by the same demographic. So it was actually favoring men over women just through their built algorithm. So it's like, if you don't have a diversity of thought, if you're not understanding, different data legislations and like how you actually need to anonymize certain, demographic information to build your AI or to build your LLM models. It's always like an interesting use case I always look back to, but also like the importance of just diversity of thought. Who are you building the product for? Who are you automating your AI for? And really making sure that, you're creating for as many people as possible. AI is being leveraged in recruiting. So I'll kind of go through this too, specifically from my last job as well as my current. I'm still in this HR tech space. So want to just give you insights. I know the job market is really, really tough. And so I'll kind of give you some insights on how big tech is recruiting nowadays and how they're leveraging AI. Exactly what we were saying, like understanding where AI replaces versus enhance. I think about this a lot. I think it's really interesting, and especially when you talk to more people about AI, of, you know, if you're a designer or a coder, sometimes I like to go in and like debug my code with ChatGPT because I don't have somebody else who's there to look at it for me. And so it's really helping to enhance the experience for me. But people are genuinely afraid nowadays that they're going to lose their jobs from AI, right? And so it's something for us to consider, that when you're building a product or when you're going to market with a product, you have to really understand how you're shaping AI, who your end user and your buyer is, and how you make sure you really have that, you know, communication or that marketing level of, we're enhancing this with AI, but we're not going to replace you, or we're not here to, you know, replace what you do. Maybe there are some areas or jobs or automations that can be replaced with it, but it's kind of like a good takeaway from when you're building a B2B SaaS company. So open source, closed source, and in-house proprietary information. So once again, I just think these are all very interesting if you want to learn how to either build from what exists, build in-house, what the difference is of all these different models. Open source is something that when I first started out with like building product that I really relied heavily on. I was not a developer. I had no idea what AI was. Was just looking up different open source models and really understanding how I could create a chatbot or some sort of automation from open source technology. You can get quicker prototypes, so it's really good from like a college perspective or a learning perspective. If you want to just build a product, get it out there in the market, see how people use it. Open source technology is great, and I'll show up some examples too if you want to start playing around with how to build your own chatbot or some open source tools. Even too, you have a big community. So Meta is a very like, they're all for open source. And so you can go down like Reddit, you can go down their community, you can go down their developer tools. And people are constantly talking about new ways to leverage open source. So you also have like a learning community of people that are within that open source API or AI models. You also have this area too where like an Amazon would more fit into like this closed source, where they leverage a lot of like AI LLM models that are pre-trained, but you can kind of add additional logic or additional Python or additional customization on top of those models. So it's from a pre-trained LLM, but you can add, you know, a little bit of what's, you know, very specific to your business case. You can house the data on your own kind of data warehouse, on your own databases. So it's more in-house than an open source. So you're not sharing all that data, but also it's still leveraging like a pre-trained model. So you'll see a lot of like startups or tech companies that kind of sit here in this like middle state. In-house proprietary, obviously this is definitely a bigger lift from, you know, a tech perspective, from a talent perspective. You need to find people that are like very, very specific in understanding AI, building AI models. But it is great because you get to own the IP. You get that competitive advantage by having an IP, whether it's a patent or the IP on, you know, the AI or the LLM model. You can have, you know, different in-house models, and you can also control the quality. So open source, you're kind of dealing with people that own that model or the in-house. Here you can actually create, you know, more consistent quality and kind of own more of the technology in your organization. So it's just an example of where some of these companies, I'm sure you all are aware of quite a few that are up on here. But this kind of just shows you the difference between like an open source tool versus a closed source tool. And so open source, like I've built some just chatbots for fun on Meta. They make it very, very easy for you just to kind of look at API docs, go find a developer or like just think through an idea. You can kind of start creating these with technology that already exists. You have other key players down here that also believe in open source, like OpenAI. I know we've all heard of ChatGPT, but they've been around for a long time of like really believing and pushing towards this thought of making everything open. That way everyone has access to this thought or to like new technology, new AI models, and constantly enhancing as a community. Then you have some of these guys here on the right that are more closed source. So like an Amazon, a Google, an IBM, a Microsoft, they all have their kind of pre-trained models. But large enterprises can build on top of these models and kind of make it, more custom to their use case. If I want to build a chatbot for insurance versus build a chatbot for purchasing a car. I can do that on a pre-trained model, but kind of tailor my own logic around it to my specific use case. I think the place here towards like the right bottom corner, I think is really, really exciting. Anthropic is a really cool company that I feel like not enough people are talking about. And it's something that we use honestly at my current company. But it's a really great tool for you to be able to leverage like a closed source tool, while also building kind of your own model on top of it. And so they're constantly evolving. We're constantly learning new things from their consultants, from their team, from their code base. And so this is just kind of giving you like an overview of some of the leaders in AI, where you can go find an open source API versus, more of like a closed source, what you'll see in like an enterprise company. There. Let's see. AI and recruiting. So I think this is a really interesting topic. Obviously too, like AI and recruiting is constantly changing. So laws, regulations, how people are leveraging it. But kind of throughout my career at both Paradox and now Sense, I worked with really large organizations across different industries and like got to sit down with their head of HR, their head of talent, and just kind of think about, what are you guys looking for? Like, what type of talent are you looking for? How are you looking for it? And in today's market, the volume is so high, specifically in tech roles, for dev roles, product, data scientists. It's been more competitive than ever, because of the macroeconomic conditions, but also just, we're seeing more of an interest in getting into these big tech companies. And so when it's becoming more and more competitive, we're seeing nowadays that companies are leveraging AI tools to help automate and improve the experience. But I also want to make sure that you guys that are going in and looking for a job are aware of how some of these companies are leveraging AI and how can you actually learn how they're leveraging it and start, making sure your resume is parsable. So some people use this as like a sourcing tool. So there's some tools that exist out there where you're kind of, you can be searched on, the web and find a good match. I'm a sourcer. I'm looking for a product manager in Phoenix. It'll go and scrape out any product manager in Phoenix if you're available on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, or any other, web that I can go crawl and then go find all of those good matches. Also too, like screening. So I've seen a lot of companies kind of adopt what they call as like resume scoring. So they're building these algorithms that can really help rank kind of their talent that are coming through the pipeline and understanding, okay, who's my A talent that I need to get into an interview right away, that I want to talk to for this hard to fill job. And so we're seeing that a ton from like a resume perspective. NLP, so you're seeing chatbots nowadays, even in applications. You're seeing chatbots when you apply to a job, understanding how they're being leveraged. And even too, making sure that when you're applying to a job that your data is safe and that, they are using some of like the GDPR and the different fundamentals that we kind of talked about before. Interviewing, so we're seeing AI in the interview process. I've seen companies that, leverage AI in video interviewing. They leverage it in, being able to determine who might be a good fit for a job based off their resume and then go ahead, send them a Zoom link, get them in for an interview. I've seen pre-recorded interviews. Once again, laws and legislation all kind of changes here. There's been a couple players in the past that actually, got in trouble because their models were discriminatory in their AI interviewing. And so constantly look out for ways that, you can create an unbiased experience, but also too, like people are kind of learning as they go. So it's up to us getting into technology, going in, understanding the fundamentals, and really building in an unbiased way. So some tips here for just looking for a job, from talking to people. I know this sounds really robotic, but make your resume parsable. I've seen just some resumes that are like 10 pages. There's these crazy fonts. I mean, I'm all for like tapping into creativity, but at the end of the day, a recruiter's probably spending like 5 seconds screening through your resume. And so if an AI is screening through your resume, it's even quicker. And so you want to make sure that your resume is really clear, concise, you're using font that, you know, a computer can read, that it's a common style. Show your resume to your friends. Honestly, I have like some of my friends just look at my resume, rip it apart, tell me what they like, what they don't like, but make sure it's like easily readable by not only a human, but by a computer. Build your online presence. So LinkedIn, I feel like that's probably just a given. But Medium, blogs, Indeed, there's so many areas that you can create a profile nowadays. And companies are using these profiles to source people. So if you have an Indeed profile, there's somebody behind their computer that's looking up, you know, product manager, recent grads, or recent grads in Arizona that have, you know, 1 year of experience or whatever. And so they're looking at all of these public sources to go in and find people. So make yourself available on the internet, make yourself searchable. Even to, you know, if you're into blogging or if you have even like a Reddit, anything, like get to know people in the community. Just kind of talk to different people, understand what other people are building. I think that's a huge kind of piece to stand out here in the job search. Even too, like I've seen a lot of PMs and designers start building just their own like personal landing page. So if you don't even want to code, that's totally fine. Go to Webflow, go to Squarespace, get a codeless editor, CMS, and just go ahead and create a landing page for yourself. That way you can put that in front of a recruiter, you can put that in a LinkedIn message, and you can show a little bit more about who you are, what you do, but also your creativity or your technical skills in that landing page of being like a resume, but more of a website. This is something that I've seen, especially when I've been interviewing people recently or looking at resumes or applications. Have AI assist you, kind of what we were talking about earlier. Don't have it just replace you. Like it's very, very obvious now when somebody's copy and pasting. I'm sure our professors see it too. Even in like, I know it's so hard to not do that because now all the content's there. But it's so obvious. I think in the beginning, like, you know, it's hard to tell what was AI and what's real, but you can tell how someone communicates or even their personality. And I can just tell if something was copy and pasted from ChatGPT. And nowadays companies are looking at that. And so they're seeing as, oh, you didn't spend enough time on your resume. You just use ChatGPT. How? So, you know, there's areas here that we need to be really strategic about when we're looking for a job that, you know, we're leveraging AI. We want to use technology. We want to, you know, really become experts in the space, but also like, don't let it replace you. Like show your personality, show what you can bring, show a little bit more about who you are. And the right recruiter and the right company is really going to match with that. Same with like interview prep. I know there's now like ChatGPT, you know, prompts for like finding good jobs that are fits or even interviewing. I went through like a couple years ago, an on-site with Google and Meta. And what really helped then was being able to like practice like mock interviews. And they even said this too. The recruiters were like, just go talk into your, like, just go talk into a mirror. I didn't listen because I was, you know, a little stubborn back then, but I wish I would have, because it would have helped me so much more in those on-sites, or even in those final rounds. So like, you know, practice. Now we have AI, so you don't have to go talk in the mirror. You can actually talk to a chatbot. Have it kind of help you of like, you know, how should I address these questions? What questions might they ask for a design interview versus a product interview? Like, what are they going to want to know about me? How do I structure that sentence? Like, really use it to like help yourself when going through the interview process. And I promise just that practice will really, really take you a long ways. Even too, if you're doing them online, like I have like a note on my computer that just says talk slower if I'm ever going through interviews, because I tend to just babble on. But you know, just use AI to really help you send kind of personal notes to yourself. And you can also really use it to just help you with the overall recruitment process in itself. But yeah, I know I talked a lot. But I just kind of wanted to go through that for like the first 30 minutes, but all of my information's up here. Please text me. You can message me on LinkedIn. I know I'm really, really backed up on LinkedIn messages. So if you have reached out, I haven't responded, I'm really sorry. But the best way to get a hold of me is email and text. And, you know, add me on LinkedIn. This is the current company I'm at too. If you want to look up, you know, what we're up to, we have an entire AI team that I work closely with every single day. We're constantly building new technologies. I also have, I built Jessie the Techie. It's just a little Instagram, but It kind of is what I was saying, like it helps other women getting into the tech industry. And, you know, kind of exposing more about, you know, the beauty of tech and creating diversity in tech. And also helped some women businesses there as well. But yeah, that's a little bit about product, AI, how to get into a career. I'll send a lot of this to Dr. Cho as well. But any questions, comments? I know I talked a lot, so I want to make sure like how's everyone feeling? Is everyone just really tired? Yeah. Yeah.
Specifically, so we talk about like there are two sides of like customer inquiries that are either very involved in this area and one is more conservative.
Mhm.
I don't know what, as your perspective or your experiences as an AI product manager, how do you help the customers overcome the conservative part?
Yeah, good question. So a lot of it is around educating, honestly, and like really making it like more humanistic. So I think when people think about AI, they just think about like iRobot or like really crazy films or movies of like AI taking over the world. So usually like when I have a client that comes in, they're like, I don't really know how I feel about this. I saw that movie back in the 90s, like, I don't want to even get close to that. But usually like kind of how I was phrasing it of like, kind of put it in a way of like, this actually can make your life a lot easier and assist you. It doesn't need to replace us as humans, but like humans are also in the background building this thing, you know? So like, you really want to put that human layer on top of it of like, this is helping you, this is assisting you. How can I help you, you know, educate you more in the space? And really just coming to them with like, you know, an assistive kind of perspective on it versus like a complete replacement. And so that's usually how I talk to clients about it. Even too, like, I think just being really like humble and open to knowledge, and sometimes too with clients, like they may not be super technical. So you don't want to go in and start, you know, talking about LLMs and OpenAI and all these, you know, generative AIs. Like they just want to know, okay, how is this going to help me on my day-to-day? Why should I use this thing and what are the impacts? And so from a product perspective, you have to really, really understand and empathize with them as a user. Put it into like human terms. Don't speak to them like a robot. And then that'll really help you in like the buying process, building process. Ooh. It's a good question. So what makes a good landing page? One, speed. So you definitely want to look for like speed if you're building out a landing page. If you have a ton of videos, if you have a ton of content that isn't easy for, or isn't rendering properly on like low bandwidth, that can cause the speed of your page to really decrease. So you want really high speed. SEO, I always think about too. So SEO and accessibility. So on a landing page, there's like this concept of like tagging your content, where really it can open it up for people that, you know, may have trouble hearing or may have trouble with their vision, that can actually leverage with screen readers. And so if you tag your content in the back end, it can actually help you become more accessible. And so Google prioritizes like certain web pages that run faster, are more accessible, have proper SEO, and it makes you more open and more searchable across board. But yeah, but it's always changing too. Like I know there's always like new logic that comes out of what Google prioritizes, but really like the search engines will look at optimizing like quick, fast, reliable, user-friendly, not a lot of bugs, but also like accessible, so a lot of people can view it. Yeah.
How's your day at Sainsbury's?
Sorry, what was that?
How's your day at Sainsbury's?
Oh yeah, good question. It's different every day, honestly. Like some days I can wake up at like 7 and have like an escalation call, for example. Like say there's a really big bug that's happening at like a large enterprise client, and my engineers need to get on a call ASAP. So I can start the day on like an escalation call, understanding what's broken, why is it broken, how do we fix this thing ASAP, and how do I go communicate this back to the client. But really too, it could also like some days are much more creative than others. So specifically at Sense, like we're very bottom up. So we're always looking for new ideas from our PMs that are on the floor. So some days I'm just like looking at what's happening in the market, talking to people that are searching for jobs, and just kind of going through research or user research. And then other days are just, building a PRD. So a product requirement document, you can build them in Notion, you can build them in Google, you can honestly write them on a piece of paper. But it's really just understanding like personas, like mapping out who you're building for and why, requirements, you can mock up, what it could potentially look like in an app, and use that to communicate with developers or designers. Other days are also very client heavy. Kind of what I was saying, I feel like a lot of the times in my PM roles, they like to throw me in front of clients because they're very unhappy or they have really specific requests for product. Go talk to them, see what you can do, go build it. And so some days too can be very client focused, which can be stressful at times, but definitely like lean into it. I think it's good to hear what people want. And I mean, at the end of the day, like clients are probably paying you. So it's good to hear how they're using your product, what they like, what they don't like. And then other days too, when I was more of like a director position was honestly around mentorship. I think, I had some of the best ideas at companies come from my interns, because they were always thinking brand new. They were always, like they weren't so confined in like this corporate world where we doubt everything. They were just so much more free with their thought process and they were coming up with amazing ideas. So I think that too, it's like, definitely lean into that, come up with these crazy ideas and then understand how they're feasible. But every day as a PM can change, across orgs, it can change. Since I'm a lot more tactical, but other days too, I have to be very strategic. So I'm bringing a brand new product to market. Whereas Paradox, I was like in the basement, kind of building the prototype from the early days. And then as I progressed there, I became more of a director where I was managing a team of 10, coaching, sending these books and like making sure people were happy. Kind of evolved around time. So it really depends. Even big tech, I know some great PMs at big tech companies. It can be totally different too. When you're at a startup, you can be running a roadmap or a product like all by yourself that is high impact. And then at a big tech company, you can be determining like, what color the icon is for Gmail. Like it really just, it depends on like, what type of company you're working for, the size, the level of impact you want to have, and what kind of fits your interest there.
You're starting a product or an idea of a company that's new.
Mhm.
What are things are you looking for to say, oh, this is successful and it's gonna work in my company, so I'll put that.
Yeah. Well, first, usually how I would go with that would be like data or research. I think a lot of the times, like there's a ton of great ideas, but if it's not backed by a reason to build it, it gets a lot of like internal pushback or trying to understand like, okay, well, how'd you come up with this idea? And so typically what I like to look at, it's like, okay, if you have this great idea, like if I want to, make Stanley Cups pink or purple, like how did I come up with this idea? I ran user research. I found that, 80% of my buyers were male. I found that, 50% of my buyers wanted, an expansion in the colors. I found that people had complaints about, the size or about the color or about the logo. And so I'd go and look back at data if it's accessible, or I would go find that data and try to prove like a hypothesis. And so typically when people come up with these ideas, it's like, take a step back. It's a good idea. Like usually you're trying to solve for a problem, right? But even too, it's like somebody can ask for, a button to be red, but it's like, well, why? Like, why do you get to be red? Oh, maybe because you couldn't find it. Maybe because it was too hidden. And so you kind of want to consistently ask why to, the question or to your users, and then have data to back it up when you're getting like internal buy-in. So that's usually how I would start with like determining what's okay for me to start kind of discovering and looking at. And then as you go through the product development process, you'll start understanding from designers, from devs, from leadership, how you need to like tweak that idea or certain areas that you actually can push back on your team on of, we really need to push this because there's this whole other market that we just haven't even researched that is looking for X, Y, and Z. And so being able to provide, your leadership or your co-founders with data and insights, it'll make your argument and it'll make you so much more persuasive on what you should be building. Oh, thanks.
AI is growing and advancing so fast.
Yeah.
And isn't it everywhere we have various ideas and perspectives to it, like something good, something bad.
Yeah.
So as AI product manager, what is your take in that? Are you finding it, I mean, what are your views there?
Yeah. In terms of good or bad, do you mean like how it's built, or do you mean like what? Can you kind of elaborate more on what you mean by good or bad?
Bad, not since it's bad, but people are against it. Somewhere we have read about it, and we have seen like people are saying, something which is not coming as real, right?
Mhm.
It is taking the ability of a human being, making it less unique or something.
Yeah.
So, how what is your take there?
Yeah, I think from like that perspective, it's like it's constantly trying to look for new knowledge and new insights. So, like for example, too, back when we were working, or when I was working on the telemedicine app, the concept of like video interviewing wasn't even a thing. The concept of like seeing a doctor on video was completely unheard of and could be very scary, or being seen as like maybe bad from people that might work at like a front office at a doctor's office that can greet, fill out your information immediately. But I think how from like a product perspective, it's that you want to see, if you are quote unquote replacing something, how are you also enhancing it and opening that up as maybe a potential career path for somebody else? And so whenever you're kind of building new tech or adapting new AI, you can not only like assist people with their day-to-day, assist them with their jobs, assist them with something they can automate and learn from, but also too, it's helping us in a way, and it's freeing up our time, and it allows us to, if you're in Figma or in a design and you want to iterate, it's coming up with quicker ideas for us to quickly prototype and to create better output. And so I really think it's about how you leverage it, how you use it, and creating AI in an unbiased way and like with real intent behind it. I think, everyone here, like it's the best thing when you go into AI, it's to really understand like why you're building it, who you're building it for, and really coming in with like an unbiased approach of like, I don't want to take over the world with this AI system. It's like, no, like, how am I actually going to make the world a little bit of a better place with this thing? And I'm going to go ask people what they think, because somebody can have a totally different perspective and see it as a negative. But how do I understand why they see it as a negative and try to turn it into that positive and like really understand what their concerns are? So I think it changes every day. People have, I've come up with ideas before that I look back on, I'm like, yeah, probably wasn't that smart, but looking back on it, it's just asking people how they feel, how they think. And then you can kind of use that with, your product skills and building products.
I just wanted to know, like, what tools and technologies is like a product manager like this? You mentioned Figma and Jan and all that.
Yeah.
So is it that we need to have like prior knowledge, or like can we learn like as we are in the like when we are in the role, we can go and then learn, or do we like need to have prior knowledge about it?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely go with the flow. I think that's like how most of the tools that I learned, it was just you're thrown into a segment. I do think though now it's becoming a lot more competitive, where it doesn't hurt to like download the tool. Like for Figma, you can have a free license, just like play around with it, like create a little prototype. I don't think it hurts. It's not a requirement, but I don't think it hurts to understand like what tools are out there. Even to like we use Jira and Confluence pretty often. That's usually what like our engineers work in. So like understanding like, how does an engineer define a bug, a feature enhancement versus a bug? What's a PRD? What's a product requirement doc? So kind of like some of those books that I showed might, touch into that a little bit more, but by no means you need to be an expert. The tools change honestly every day. Like Figma was not a thing when I first started out, and you never know. Like at the end of the day, some of the best ideas come from pen and paper. And so if you can communicate with pen and paper, you can communicate your idea, like you'll be successful wherever you go. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you explain?
To build or to purchase? Build? It depends on like what their problem is. Like say for example, if I don't know, like let's say there's a client that, they're having a hard time finding parking spaces or something. Like you got to understand what their problem is and then how you can actually solve it through artificial intelligence. So if you're starting from like zero, so if you have absolutely no product, you have kind of like an idea that you think you have that people might, purchase. It's really good to prototype, but understand like who your potential buyers are. Like what demographic am I selling to? What age group are they? What segment are they? Where do they live? If you go through like big tech interviews, they're going to look for that of like these clarifying questions. Because you want to know why you're building, who you're building, and what you're building. And so I would say like when you're first kind of going into your first clients, like what's their day-to-day? What's their user flow? Like how do they, do their day-to-day job? And then you as a PM can go in and analyze, okay, this is, the day-to-day of a student. These are areas of friction that students have. And then these are areas that we could potentially automate with AI. And then kind of position that to build out your roadmap.
They always want
No. But sometimes, yeah, I mean, I say no because it's like, once again, sometimes clients are like, Jess, like I need the font to be larger, or I need the font to be bright green or something. And it's like, okay, like, is that just like, why do you feel that way? And so I think it's like the 5 whys. But if you ask why, like 5 times, you'll finally get to like a better idea of why somebody wants something. And so I would just say that like constantly ask people if you're doing research or your clients, ask them why. If they just demand something, like there has to be some intent behind it. There's some psychology behind it. And the more you ask why, the more you're actually going to build products with intent versus product just to like get a client to stop talking, which sometimes you, yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So that was a problem.
Yeah.
My students were trying to ask me to
Mhm.
maybe like to that stuff that AI
Mhm.
without taking the data or enough data. It's fun, like for example, that
Mhm.
software that
Mhm.
product
Mhm.
was like they share with you like data or
Yeah, I mean, it depends on industry. So like healthcare had very different like legalities, and there's like COPA compliance, there's HIPAA compliance. HR tech has like EEOC, diversity compliance, anonymous type of compliance. So it depends on the industry that you're in, typically on like what you're limited to, even regions. Like certain regions require a database in their country. If you're handling data in China, you need to have a database in China. And so like it's based off of the industry, it's based off of location, it's based off of the type of data that you're handling. Most clients honestly probably won't even know what the regulations are. They might, unless they have like an IT team or like a legal team, they'll push you in that direction. But it just depends on the data that you're storing, that you're leveraging. Looking at best practices, looking up, if you need to anonymize it, looking up where you need to, have your databases physically. If you're handling it and, if you have users in the EU, what is GDPR? How do you need to build towards that? And so clients kind of look at us in tech sometimes to like give them insights of how they're handling their data, because a lot of the times they don't know. Or they have like big IT teams or, legal teams that are demanding us every single day of like, okay, you guys need to meet all these requirements, go through all this pressure testing, and then we can determine whether or not your product's a fit.
other people have questions.
We could, after, if you have more questions, we can talk after class. Yeah, any other?
And you talked about the feedback from the users. So on the person basis, so we, so do you prefer to get feedback from the users?
Yeah, like communicating to like leadership, communicating internally, or communicating with the users. Oh yeah. Good question. So it's really like having data, but being able to translate it in a way where a CEO that has 1,000 things on their plate can actually look at and understand. So sometimes too, when we get really technical or really into a problem, we want to like, give an entire synopsis of everything we learned, where at the end of the day, like, a CEO is like, okay, how's this going to make me more money? And so it really depends on like that user research. who you're talking to, who you're trying to get buy-in from. If I need buy-in from my dev team, you know, I'm gonna show them the research I put into this. I'm gonna show them how it's feasible and break it up into steps. If I'm going to my CEO, I'm gonna show them how this is actually gonna generate more revenue, how I can get this up and running quickly. So it, you know, really helps the bottom line. If I'm going to a client success or an implementation person, I want to, you know, bring them data or bring them insights that's going to help them, you know, get a client live faster or help them save time. So I think it's important as PMs, like you have to really cater your conversation to your audience because developers communicate a different way than the CEO does. And what they want is different. It's all going to the same goal to build a company, but how you communicate it can be different. But you can still leverage that same data and communicate it in a way that makes sense to your audience. It like directly in resume or LinkedIn or. So a couple items there. So I know with like job descriptions, for example. So if you're applying to a job that has like 5+ years of experience, that you can think of, okay, maybe a computer or an automation is parsing this or automating this. And if I don't have 5+ years resume, obviously don't lie about it. If you don't have 5+ years, don't add that on your resume. But if that's not something that's easily identified on your resume, it's probably going to get passed through. If someone's looking for like SQL, or if they're looking for a specific like technical skill and you have it, but it's not on your resume, always look at the job description, because whether it's a human or a computer, the more it matches like, you know, skill sets, years of experience, you know, schooling, if that's worth it, then it'll kind of match those two and then create you like a top match or a score. Mhm.
Mentioned, that you got a video portfolio idea project.
Mhm.
Basically, I want to discuss it.
Mhm.
What kind of idea projects you recommend?
I would definitely, so I think the landing page is a good idea. If I were to go back in time, I probably would have built a personal website. Just that way I could, you know, actually put, you know, a project or even just like build a blog on there. I think too, a couple ideas too is that you can actually go through like a product brainstorming exercise without actually taking the product to market. So one of the exercises in like the books that I shared, it's like go walk into a Target and go look at the first item you see on a shelf. And like sounds really weird, but kind of think about like, okay, what does this product do? How would somebody use this product? How would I use this product? What's great with it? What's not so great? How would I improve it? Like that in itself is creating a product requirement document. So you can really like create a product anywhere. You can create, you know, a digital product, a physical product, think through it. You can get user research from your classmates. So if you want like a product portfolio on user research, maybe you want to build, you know, a better tool for students to quickly go ahead and maybe receive feedback or something. And so if you take all the data analytics, kind of use it, create it in a space, and then create that in your online or digital portfolio, and like showcase the different skill sets, coding or as well as designing. So as I said, like you don't need to be the best coder in the world, you don't need to be the best designer, you don't need to be the best business person. It's communicating and bringing all these attributes together, but having somewhat of a foundation of that. Like when I was getting into AI, I had to understand NLP, I had to understand like, what the heck is Python? Like, what are some of these, like, what are my devs talking about? And so there's some great classes on like Flip Academy. There's free courses, there's books I've read where you can just understand the foundations of code. It really just depends, but I think you can build your portfolio in a way of what interests you. Like if you want to get into a technical product manager role, you might need to learn more about APIs. You might need to learn more about, you know, code bases and technology. If you want to get more into consumer tech, then you probably want to learn more about like human computer interaction, user empathy, UX. And so it really depends what your interest is. You can play around too with different tools, and maybe you try coding and you hate it. But maybe you go into Figma, you build a prototype and you love it. You know, you don't really need to be the best at any of it, but as long as like a recruiter or a hiring manager seeing that you've put in this effort to build up your portfolio or to build these projects, if you don't have experience, like that shows a lot, and that gives you a lot of talking room and a lot of like your interviews or your portfolio. Ooh. Wow, that's a big question. Thing. It's a really hard question. I think like, but I'll kind of answer that in two ways. I think from a life perspective, I would just be like a lot more open-minded. I think too, like starting with my freshman year, I think I was doing mechanical engineering or civil engineering. And my mind was very, very closed off to like one career, one thing, one path. And so I think when you first start out in, college or in your career, like you get so fixated on one thing or one path and you kind of lose sight of other things that could have brought you to your passion much earlier. So I would say like, just keep an open mind, explore new things, meet new people, figure out what your likes versus dislikes are, and like learn more about like who you are and what inspires you. So at the end of the day, that'll help you not only in your personal life, but also in your professional, of like, am I actually doing something that aligns with me and, my values and who I am? But also just in a personal standpoint too. From a career standpoint, I would say like just stay humble. I feel like at times like when we're studying or we're taking on new projects, we think we know everything or we think we're like the experts in that one thing. But at the end of the day, like there's so many smart people in this room. There's so many smart people in the world. There's people that, maybe have a different education or don't have an education that you can learn from. Like constantly, be open-minded, but also just like be very humble, have a low ego. That'll bring you so much success in your career and your interviewing, your networking, and having that low ego will just help overall in your career.
I guess I get the closing
Yeah.
about careers.
Yeah.
This actually happened recently. I was exchanging emails with a student at 3 a.m. This topic has come up more than once. And the student wrote to me, do you have any work-life balance on your job? And this is after I started thinking, I think the last time I had work-life balance, I was 12.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't have to do college, I started working, and you know what life is like in the valley. How do you respond to that? How do you make a decision?
Yeah, I'll kind of go down the path of like mental health and protecting your time. When I took that break, so from Paradox, I was there for like, early days, we went up, became $1.5 billion company, woohoo! Like, and then I was just at that time, I was like, okay, I'm exhausted. Like, I'm so tired. I had been building startups like since I was 19. And I started like losing sight of like, once again, like, who am I? What do I want? What drives me? And so I think it's like, it's very important to like protect your mental health, and to protect, what's important to you in your personal time, because it could easily creep into like professional time into personal time if you don't make the effort to keep them separate. And like, there were times when I think I was on a plane 100 times throughout 1 year. And so I wasn't sleeping, I was, eating bad food, I was like not having a good schedule, but I was advancing my career to this next level. But at times it's like, you're going to burn yourself out. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not prioritizing your mental health, if you're not prioritizing your peace and, things that make you happy. And also your team's going to burn themselves out because they're going to think that, okay, well, if my director's going in and just working, 24 hours and never taking a break, they're probably going to think that they need to do that too. So, it's always changing. Different times in your life can be different too. Like when I was very, very young, I was, giving it my all and putting in every hour of the day because I, didn't have a family. I didn't have, other priorities. It was really just like me, myself, and my career. As I've gotten older though, it's like, okay, now I'm, starting to shift that a bit of how can I balance this? How do I take care of myself? Someday I want to raise a family. How do I build an amazing family, take care of kids while still having a career? And so it's all about just like protecting your energy, making sure you're prioritizing your mental health. And like, once again, like in college, like use this time to like figure out who you are. Like you're never going to know totally 100%, but like tap into what inspires you, what drives you, and like try to find that balance now. And hopefully it can help in the future. But like, I laugh at that sometimes, like when people say work-life balance, I'm like, it could always be better, but you have to like, just gotta be so intent with it. Because it'll easily creep over into like every aspect of your personal life. And at the end of the day, like we're all people, we're not AIs, we're not LLMs just going off a database or off data. Like you're people, you gotta take care of yourself, you gotta drink water. You gotta, go stand outside, we get some sun. So just remind yourself that every day and hopefully you can find that balance. But from like personal experience, like I went through that, I burnt myself out. And if I were to go back, I wish I would have found that balance earlier on. So I could have created those healthier habits before. But that's very long.
She gave a very thoughtful answer. My answer to the student was work-life balance. What the hell is that? You're a student, it's a work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I say that now, but I was like, yeah, as a student, I had an internship. I think I was working 35 hours in internship. I was taking like 9 classes to try to catch up. Like, yeah, it was pretty crazy. But yeah, it all depends where you are in your life. But I feel like now I'm like, I mean, I'm still about like grind, but at the same time, it's like I also want to have a good life. So it's not all just work and serious AI that I do all day. Like at the end of the day, like I have a personal life and like to talk to people. So yeah. And I hope everyone enjoyed this. But yeah, like please.
I would love for you to keep talking. The problem.
Oh, no, you're
is
good.
After this is Professor Sherman's class.
Oh yeah. Keep babbling.
Anyway, thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Well, got a lot less here. You've got, I don't know, I use his DNA with my. Whatever, but how it's. I'm gonna let some of these people, they have questions.
I'm here, yeah, so I just.
How are you?
I don't feel like
So yes, yeah.
make progress. Yeah, I mean, I could do it, like, when I was back to. It's like, I thought I like.
Well,
Like, it's really good, and, like, even on that podcast I shared, like, the 11 star experience will help you like dream big and get you to like, North Star, the final end goal, but you gotta be realistic at the same time of like, I hear your point, like I hear what you're asking for, but like, with technology, it's not there yet, and here's why. We just want to. That's one of the conversations.
That's one of my friends. They have a very dream big. But then he has a very big, like, wedding. Yes, he wants to be done. So like my friend, the other classmate has this CTO.
I was like, all right.
Like my friends, like, it's like they all.
Oh, I don't know, it depends. Maybe, right? It's also like.
And there's like this good balance of it, like, I think there's a lot of good freedoms that drive submission, like they get you closer to it, but at the same time, like, I think really the data is really type, so it's kind of help me a bit of like, maybe this isn't possible now, but this is how I can get there. Like maybe what they're asking for, they're just looking to speed up the process, or looking to create higher quality goods. We ask that why, and we give them a solution to solve for that why. It's usually not meeting exactly what they like are requesting for, but it's solving for a problem.
But I mean, we need to like give them a whole, like, here's what we kind of wanted to do.
Yeah.
I don't, I 10%.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. That's like, where it's like, the clients just like really upset, so it's like, at the end of the day, like, you wanna build stuff that actually like, do usable and but, like, communication, like, how you deliver, how you deliver it and like, what you're doing. Like, I mean, people just like don't like to be even like, especially when they're leaders, like, they don't like to be told no, but they like to know like why. That makes sense. So like, if I'm asking this crazy thing, like, oh, why can't you do that? Like, it's like, can you find where the strengths are, and it's like flat.
So it's just kind of like.
Yeah, it's finding the middle, but also it's like communicating to emotions, yeah, of like, what's important to them and what matters.
So like, I have a second question, just so like.
Yeah, but. Yeah, for sure. So many good, yeah.
So it's like, if is there another round or like?
Yeah.
Really good way to code.
Yeah.
PM, I think it's more so like understanding the project, and like, and I think like a lot of people don't like really into network stuff, it was like, it was boring to me, like, I just wasn't a fan of it, but if you can like think through a problem and think through a solution, I think that's what people look for in PM, so it's like, you know, if you go into like a technical team, like, you're great people, but it was very, very technical, but they weren't looking for me to code, they were looking for like pseudo code, like fake code of like how I thought through a problem. So it's like, as long as you can like think through a problem, map it out, communicate it, you don't really need to know how to code. You have like coders that can do that for you, but you need to.
It's like, I also need to basic understand what coding means.
Yeah, I mean, just like, yeah, like what's like a front end versus what's back end, but there's like, you know, introductions and like quick courses or just but you just have to like understand it. Yeah, the terminology.
That's good to
Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
You only, you know, learn by practice. Yeah. Right. Easy.
That's a really good mystery.
Yeah, how do you use it to your advantage?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.
My name's Elsa, by the way.
Nice to meet you, Elsa. Thank you for coming. Thanks for asking all the questions.
I like it. Thank you.
I was trying to get into product management from last year.
Okay.
So I developed my portfolio.
Nice.
So it was something like this, but it is like 1 year old.
We did.
So I'm trying to make something new. So I was asking what projects can I add? So I already made a design project
Nice.
in Manage.
Yeah. Oh, this is awesome.
So design was like this. I made some screens on the
Yeah.
and so build was like I built a SpaceX tool, and hosting I did everything hosting on cloud.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking for making some MLA projects. So what should I add for looking for those rules?
Have you played around with like APIs? Are you a developer?
No,
Or
but
Yeah. I would say, okay, so design, build, manage. I would say there's something I would look on here too would be like a research perspective too, of like, why did you design this? Why did you like, you want a backstory, right? Like,
the story, my everything.
yeah, you want to see the work behind it. They don't. Yes, market research. I think too, like when people show you the final, it's like one.
And what I use like my tools like I use atomicity molecule design.
Yeah.
So I should show it also.
Totally, yeah, and treat it like, almost like a whiteboard. You
Okay.
should do like, you have like, if you go into one of these, like, show like, you know, my mind or my process, and like, so when you go into an interview, like, you know, you can design the most beautiful app in the world, but if I don't know why you built it, who it's for and what it's solving, that's what I'm looking for in an interview. And so I would say it's like, show like the mind map, your logic, how you worked on it, who you talk to, who you collaborate, the questions you ask. So like show your product process. I would say on top of that, and then if you want to get technical, I would say like APIs.
I was thinking like Solar model.
Yeah.
I also downloaded the Globe, but I don't know how to run it, so I'm playing with all of
But
it.
yeah,
So I was thinking of uploading like a blog beside it, so would that all work? For hiring?
yeah. So yeah, totally. And like essentially like one of my product managers over at Bird Auction, she built like this chatbot, this Facebook chatbot, right? Like there's like open source like meta chatbot API that you can go to. You can create your own like intents behind it of like, what's your favorite color? Tell me about yourself, stuff like that. And so she was actually showing that in the interview process or on LinkedIn, where it's like, you could add that little chatbot here and like, hey, like learn about who I am, or like it shows a little bit of like your personality, but also.
So I was just making a project related to focus people, it's alternative. So I'm
Let me
working,
grab my water. I'm listening though.
I was looking for that, so I was only, so I think it might be.
It looks amazing. You're already, yeah, I wasn't even close to have anything like that when I started out, so you're already ahead.
That's so fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough market, it's really hard, I mean, that's like, as I said too, like, even too, when I took that, I took a mental health, right? And like 6 like months, like just looking out, and then finally until I like put it out to my network of like, anybody know anyone? I'm like, can anyone have coffee with me? Like, anybody out there? And the second I was like humble about that, I was like, I need help, like, I need a job. My network came together and actually helped me. So like, this, yeah, it's like just meet people, constantly learn new things.
That's why.
Build with your classmates, like, one of the first kind of products I like
Yeah.
running was here. And I used that in all my interviews. One of my friends got a big developer role at Amazon, and he used the app that him and I were like building in a classroom together to like showcase. So it's like, you know, work with people around you, like, be humble and learn. So, yeah. What you had one? Yeah.
So, what do you think I should focus on, you know, master's student? I think that there's something that I need to focus on to try to do.
Is there anything that like you're very interested in, or anything that like you gravitate towards?
I think, probably a market research, you know, in the technology, like in the IT sector.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like, so many like data, if you take like any like classes or like,
Yeah, I have taken, IT courses.
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So product, I don't know if like SQL is something that's really, have you?
Yeah,
heard of SQL? Like, you do have SQL
Yeah.
experience? Okay, that's really good. That's something that like a lot of product managers like don't really need to use it every day, but if you're working for a startup, you have to learn how to manipulate data and use data. So it sounds like you're already really technical. I maybe like tap into like that creative and the business side of like some of those books I shared of like, you know, thinking about the 11-star experience, thinking about what's possible, like really building that creative side. So you have, it sounds like you have a lot of the technical side. I would just tap more into like the creative, the design thinking, and then you can merge that together.
And recently I've taken like course, you know, the project that's situated, course.
Yeah.
And trying to grow my network and how much. Really, so I just wanted to know if you have any tips that I could use.
I mean, like TikTok, Instagram, anything like that. I mean, I think people like, especially youth, I have no idea what they want to do, what they want to get into. And so I think like if you can post to people that are also in a similar position as you, like, a lot of people are looking for like, you know, thinking about what people go in and, you know, listen to and like, I don't know, I think like I found some really great reports on Instagram of like, this is product management stuff, how you can get into it. This is what, I don't know, like I made like a silly video, some video of, like how to invest money, and like I got so many people just to like interact with it and say like, oh wait, this is actually something I'm really interested in. So yeah, I mean, put yourself out there, create a justice, create a blog. I didn't, you know, I didn't want it to be anything massive, but ended up getting like personal clients from it and like, you know, built a great group, like, you know, met some amazing women around the area in meetup. So it's like, you never know unless you might be out there. But it was really thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll share with Dr. Chow, I'll share like, yeah, I'll share the slides, and then I'm making like a little notion for you guys too of like, exercises you can do, like, you know, whether it's coding design, that would be, yeah. I really thank you. I wanted to, I was like, I need animation or no one's gonna pay attention. Like, I think I saw a couple people sleeping, I was like, it's okay. So what was that? It's really kind. It's, I mean, it depends, right? Like, I had a stand up with my developers yesterday and like, I had no time, but, and so they had like a white Google slide and like, just like Arial text, because like, I just needed to get something across. But when I'm presenting in front of like a Fortune 500 company, like it's gotta look really well put together. Yeah, it's gotta look well put together, and like, and a lot of these companies like really are interested in products. So, you know, if your product is showing really well and if you like show it in a really concise way, then like, you know, it's something that can go ahead. Build on top of. But yeah, I mean, this I built in Canva and it was like a good template that I could just build on top of. But yeah, I mean, I definitely like when I meet with my devs, it's like here's a whiteboard where I draw on it. So it depends. So in the agile, it was like it can be the same, right? It can be the same for sure. It's like even too, there's like different roles. Like you have like an AI PM, you have like a scrum master, you have a product owner, you have a staff product manager, you have a senior product manager. Sometimes everyone kind of treats it. Yeah, they're usually very similar. Like also too, when I was first starting out, I would go creep on people at that company and go see like what their background was, or like, you know, like maybe see like if there's something that you have somewhat interest in, something that they've done. That way it's like when you go and reach out to somebody, like make it personal before you ask for something. Like never reach out to somebody and just ask, hey, I need a job. Like, you know, like they're not gonna look at that. It's gonna be in their inbox of 50 other things. But if you're like, hey, I saw, you know, something you posted about ACU a year ago and it really resonated with me because of X, Y, and Z, I would go and click on that, you know? So it's like, you have to make things more personal and like, you can't just ask people for things, you gotta make it really personalized. Make the story. Yeah. I'm gonna be a good storyteller, yeah. But yeah. Okay. Yeah, cheers. Yeah, like people, sometimes if they're working for a startup, they're like, how do I manage my backlog? Or how do I have a proper QA testing? Or, go build test scripts on like how to go and test out a new feature. Like, if you're working for a small company, you have to like be able to flex a lot of those muscles or like go learn about it. So I think that kind of helps in that sense of like, coming from IT background, it's great, but at the same time, it's like also tapping into that creative side that like, for me was the most challenging, because I came from the more technical side, that the creative, the design side, I was like, I have no idea what this world is, but like, the more you can learn from it, it'll like help you expand a little bit more with like your expertise. But I think it's a great background. I think you become a product manager and background, so it's all possible. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks. Thank you guys for listening, for asking questions. It really means a lot. I'm glad people listened. Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yes, oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. You too. Thank you guys. My name is Annie. Nice to meet you. We can sit over over the same word, remember? We never got on the call. So that's okay. Yeah. How's have you been, are you going to the job? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, what's this now? 5 years of experience. I'm pretty much what you did, yeah, but what I'm on. So that's hands-on experience. So in addition to the are you looking at big tech startups or all the I would say like the market is really hard. Like it took me months to go look with like experience too. So it's like you've gotta like really open up your mind to different things that are out there. And even if it is like a smaller startup, it's like you can still go and learn some. But those like any job I've gotten, I didn't get it by submitting an application. Which I had to remind myself of that recently because I started like, oh, you know what, I want to start applying all these places, but it's like, you look back at it, like all the jobs I've gotten is just by like meeting somebody. And so I would attend, if there's like events around Arizona or like ways to network, like attend like visit and paradoxes just by talking to people. And so I would just try to like go to coffee meetups, go to events, bring your resume, put yourself out there, post on LinkedIn, maybe do like, learned about this today or something, and like, just a way to expand your network. Because applying to jobs nowadays is just so hard that the more you apply, it's like, it takes so much more, like it takes like building a network, getting to know people, and like the professors know people, and like there's like startup week. I think Arizona has that here. That's where I met a lot of the founders as well. Like attend those, don't be afraid to say hi and like talk about a project you're working on and any opportunities they have, and have your resume ready to go and readily available. Yeah, but still, I mean, yeah, you have my number. So please, I'm here until Friday. But yeah, if you like are around or want to get coffee or just chat, let me know because I'm in town until Friday morning. Yeah. Oh, then. Yeah, I think I have either Thursday early morning tomorrow, and then I have like a late night product launch. But I can do like tomorrow or even like tomorrow I have a very big presentation, big class that'll get away. Too, like it's I'll be in New York this weekend, but Sundays, if you want to send me a text, just hop on the phone. Actually weekends are great. Weekdays I have like 2 days of texts right now. Weekends, yeah, just yeah. Email it or text it or email it, and I'll go ahead and look at it.
Okay, so this Sunday is also here in the morning.
Yeah, please, ping in the morning. I'll be on Eastern time zone. But I'll be looking out on the personal things, yeah.
That is so great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
It's like, also when I heard this was happening and I was like, are you coming in person or is it online?
Yeah, I was like, I have to come in person. I wanted to like see everything, but
That's great.
yeah.
Do you often travel for work purpose?
Yeah, I do, and also like my boyfriend travels a lot for work. He works for Formula One, so he's like all over the world. So wherever it's like sometimes wherever he travels, I like try to go meet him in that city. So yeah,
Are you originally from Arizona?
yeah, nice. Yeah.
All right, then. So that's
Yeah,
great.
me too. It's so nice to see you.
Nice to
Talk
meet you.
soon. Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Hey, yes.
This is Travis. This is my dad.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Aaron Travis.
He's heard of. He's heard of.
Yeah.
so
Oh,
He
man.
was just
Yeah.
like
It's-
in the back here.
So I sent out that flyer to everybody. And, that, Joe sent out, so. We had a pretty good turnout, but thank you so much for coming and speaking. I had a couple of student sessions that